You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, July 15th, 2014, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. We're so glad you could all join us here today. Thanks for being here, and thanks for supporting the end of adult marijuana prohibition, whether you happen to be a marijuana consumer or not. There's more of you than there are of us, so we need your support as well if we hope to end this government tyranny over nature's greatest plant. Also joining us today, we've got Priscilla Sibin from our Colorado office. How you doing, Priscilla? Priscilla!
Oh, yeah, now I can hear you.
Good. How you doing today?
Oh, man, I am alive. How are you?
Still recovering from that 710 weekend, I see.
Jeez, I need another weekend from this past weekend, literally. It's been crazy.
I know, people think when I go off to these cannabis cups and these hemp fests that it's all just fun and games, but really it's harder work doing those than it is doing the show.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're just for days, you know, it's a 3-day pot festival. It's great. My mind feels a little bit melted, but I'm here, like I said.
Any news to report from the cup? Any winners or anything?
Yeah, the winners. There was a bunch of winners, a couple of winners that were up twice on the stage. We have the Health Center and Sean Tron. He's the one who won the CBD category, and he won Best Overall. We also have Advanced Medical, AMA, and Kind Bill, who won for the sativas. There's a whole list on the 710 Cup page that I was going to post on our Twitter so that way we could have it. But yeah, it was really great. There was over a dozen winners. There was 51, strains to choose from.
Excellent.
But overall, it was really great.
Excellent work. And if people want to follow you on Twitter, what's your handle again?
My handle is Priscilla Sibin.
There you go. PriscillaCybin. Priscilla Sibin on Twitter. Follow her and you'll get all the latest updates from our Colorado office. Priscilla will also be back with us in right after this first break with our 420 radio news. And in the headlines today, we've got a great announcement from the Obama administration supporting states' rights to decide legal marijuana. A new poll coming out from Huffington Post and YouGov shows great support for Colorado legalization. Activists in San Jose are fighting to keep their dispensaries open by bribing people to sign signatures on a petition. The Los Angeles city attorney wants to shut down the marijuana farmers market. Voters in South Portland, Maine will be deciding legalization this November. And in Florida, the campaign to fight for medical marijuana will surpass $10 million. We'll take a look at all of those stories when we get back from our first break here on 420 Radio. Then after the second break, we're going to go into our Behind the Headlines segment. We're going to take a deeper look at that Huffington Post YouGov poll to show exactly what American attitudes toward the unfolding marijuana legalization in this country are, and you'll be surprised by some of the demographic crosstabs that I've pulled out of this poll. Also on the show today, it's Tuesday, so we're going to do a little bit of drug war data mining. There's a great article up on Mother Jones that takes a look at all 50 states and the future of decrim, medical, and legalization in all 50 states. So stay tuned. We'll find out where your state placed. And then at the end of the show, we'll have time for a radical rant. I'm telling you, folks, legalization is blowing cops' minds. We'll tell you how cops in Colorado and in Oregon just can't handle the idea that they can't just bust every pothead they find. What do you know? And then in hour 2, Toker Talk Radio will take your calls at 971-533-7111, making you the voice of the marijuana nation. News is next. We're back after this.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the activist radio station.
Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz thinks it's okay for medical marijuana patients to go to federal prison. On May 30th, she voted against an amendment that would respect Florida's new laws and protect Florida's patients. Even though 88% of Florida voters support medical marijuana, why would Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz vote to send patients like this to prison? Is Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz out of touch with Florida?
Electric Bob's Boogaloo, the best in electronic dance and experimental music, every Tuesday at 5 and 8 Pacific on 4.
I don't use marijuana, but as a teacher of 36 years, I can tell you lots of other people use it. I don't believe in prohibition. I don't think it works. Prohibiting it hasn't stopped anybody from getting a hold of it. I would like to see it regulated so that maybe kids can't get a hold of it so easily. I know they get a hold of it now very easily. I support a new approach to marijuana. I support legalizing it. It's with us. It's not going to go away. And if we can get money through the taxation, we can also educate our kids about it. That's why I support it.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Priscilla Simon.
Hey everyone, it's your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, July 15th, 2014. The Obama administration has pushed back hard against Congress's attempt to gut the recently passed marijuana decriminalization law in Washington, D.C. Representative Andy Harris, a Republican from Maryland, attached an amendment to an appropriations bill that would prevent the district from using any of its local funds to implement marijuana law reforms. Its primary intent seems to be the blocking of the decriminalization law, with the secondary goal of forestalling an attempt this November to legalize marijuana outright through an initiative petition recently submitted by activists. Quote, the administration strongly opposes the language in the bill preventing the district from using its own local funds to carry out locally passed marijuana policies, end quote. The administration admonishes in its statement of the administration policy on HR 5016, quote, which again undermines the principles of the state's right and district home rule. Furthermore, the language poses legal challenges to the Metropolitan Police Department's enforcement of all marijuana laws currently in force in the district, end quote.
This is great news from the Obama administration, and it's nice that they point out at the end there that the Representative Harris amendment would prevent the District of Columbia from implementing its current marijuana laws. And what they're talking about there, D.C. has passed a marijuana decriminalization law where if you have an ounce on you, you can only be fined a $25 ticket, right? Well, this amendment would say that D.C. can't spend any money on marijuana laws. It doesn't cost anything to not arrest somebody, right? So that would still be in effect, but writing a ticket does cost money. You got to print the ticket, you got to process the ticket, you got to pay the officer to write it, right? So in effect, he would actually legalize it de facto because it would be decrim with no punishment. So already it was a flawed idea to start with. But I think the real takeaway from this is in the exact same paragraph where he's saying the administration strongly opposes the language in the bill and it's against states' rights and home rule. In that same paragraph, he castigates them for attacking abortion funding as well, using local funds. Now, I don't care where you stand on the abortion issue. That's not what this show is about. But the fact that the president in 5 years has gone from, I don't know what that says about the online audience, when asked about marijuana legalization, and chuckling and laughing at us, in 5 years now, he's gone to elevating the discussion on marijuana policies to a states' rights issue on par with abortion rights. That is a remarkable change. Well done.
A new poll from YouGov/HuffPost has found that 61% of Americans support the legalization of marijuana in Colorado. The poll asks, quote, "Do you support or oppose Colorado's new law which makes recreational marijuana use legal, but applies a heavy tax on marijuana sales, limits the sale of marijuana only to people 21 years age or older, and makes it illegal to take marijuana out of the state?" Majority support for Amendment 64 crossed all demographic categories, including support in the South and Midwest topping 60%, while the Northeast and West remain in the middle 50% range. Even Republicans support Colorado legalization at 52%, and senior citizens aged 65 and older supported at 64%. This support comes despite American majority's belief that legalization will lead to more youth using marijuana, 53%. Majorities across every demographic do not believe the, quote, gateway theory, and all demographics agree that marijuana legalization will not increase crime rates, except for Republicans who are split on the issue.
Yeah, and another takeaway from this poll, because they asked it in two different ways, right? One question asked, do you support Colorado's legalization? And then they got into the detail, right? Colorado's legalization, you got to be 21 and older, there's a heavy tax, it's illegal to take it out of state, right? And when you gave all that detail, you got 61%. But when they asked people earlier a very general question, do you support marijuana legalization? It only came out at 51%. And what that says to me is that people are now interested in the details of marijuana legalization. And when we explain to them how we're going to keep it from kids, how we're going to tax it, how we're going to, try to keep it in state, how we illustrate the safety that we will get from legalizing marijuana, the support goes up. If you just ask people generally, should we legalize marijuana? Well, some people might be thinking, packs of smokes at the 7-Eleven, right? So they might think of legalization as something much broader than what's really being proposed. I would suggest to reformers that we use this kind of information moving forward so that when we design polls to ask people about legalization, that we're specific about what legalization means and don't just leave it up to some generic category of legalization.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
We'll get deeper into these crosstabs and show you more about each question and which demographics do and do not support marijuana legalization when we go behind the headlines after this news feature.
Medical marijuana activists in San Jose are offering free weed and medical marijuana recommendations in exchange for petition signatures. The City Council passed new zoning regulations for dispensaries that threaten to put almost all of them out of business this Friday. In response, the Silicon Valley Cannabis Coalition, a group of dispensary owners, lawyers, and growers, are attempting to gather enough signatures to have a referendum on the council's decision. The coalition explains that they have 45,000 grams of free weed worth about $4,500 to offer to those who sign the petition, along with the doctor's commitments to provide 30,000 free medical marijuana recommendation examinations worth about $1.2 million. About 70 dispensaries would be affected by the new regulations.
Okay, so let's be clear. I love marijuana. I love medical marijuana laws. I think patients should have all the access they could possibly need. But I hate this move by the Silicon Valley Cannabis Coalition. This is bribery for signatures. This is messing with the fundamental mechanisms of democracy. And the easiest way to show you why this is wrong, if you're a pot supporter and you're thinking, well, why not? Just give a free gram of weed to get a signature. Let me put the shoe on the other foot, okay? A free gram of weed's worth about $10. A free medical marijuana evaluation is worth about $40. How would you feel if Sheldon Adelson, the Las Vegas tycoon right-winger, came into California and started offering people $50 a signature to overturn Prop 215? You see how that works, right? If our side is allowed to give away stuff that's worth $50 to gather signatures, then their side is allowed to give away $50 to gather signatures. If your cause isn't strong enough to generate political support based on the rhetoric and reasoning and compassion of your point, then you don't deserve to win at the ballot box. This is the tool of tyrants and dictators to buy elections, and it's something that the cannabis community should not be getting involved in.
The Los Angeles city attorney is putting a stop to the marijuana farmers market that drew long lines over the July 4th weekend, calling it, quote, a public nuisance that, quote, detracts from the quality of life in the community, end quote. LA City Attorney Mike Foyer announced a lawsuit Monday against the West Coast Collective. Foyer claims the market violates city zoning laws and regulations against unfair competition. Quote, we will do everything we can to put a halt to them, end quote, Foyer said in a statement, claiming that the market caused big crowds, traffic, and interfered with access to public property.
All right, let's read between the lines here. What the market really caused is a whole bunch of middlemen who make their money on the markups at dispensaries to get upset. That's what he's talking about with this unfair competition thing. But this farmers market just shows the direction that legalized marijuana eventually has to go to. This is supply and demand, and the supply we're talking about is a weed. Okay, we can no more control these farmers markets than we can control grandma from growing too many zucchinis and bringing them to every family barbecue, right? I mean, it's a plant, it's a weed, and it wants to be free. It wants to be produced in mass, and the people that want it want to be able to get it directly from the farmer. This is a product we're talking about that the quality of the grower makes so much difference between the quality of one product versus another. You get two different growings of train wreck, and you might love one because the guy grew it a certain way, and you might hate the other one because the guy grew it a different way. So being able to interface directly with the farmer and find out exactly how your bud was grown and what went into it and all of that is so important to the consumers. It may be a while before we get to that point. It may take a few steps of legalization, medical to dispensaries to pot shops to all adults to home grow, and then maybe eventually farmers markets, but it's going to happen eventually anyway. LA should just get their minds around that first instead of trying to stamp out wildfires everywhere they go.
Voters in South Portland, Maine will probably be voting on legalization of an ounce of marijuana. Activists from Citizens for a Safer Maine, backed by the Marijuana Policy Project, dropped off 1,521 signatures to City Hall on Monday, surpassing the 959 signatures needed to qualify for the ballot. Voters in Greater Portland already voted to legalize in the last election, and MPP is working to have voters in New York and Lewiston join South Portland in a 2014 legalization vote in participation of a statewide legalization campaign for 2016.
Yeah, this is how they did it in Massachusetts as well. They did a bunch of local initiatives that really didn't mean anything. They're all symbolic, right? It's like, yay, Annapolis voted to, Annapolis, that was in Massachusetts. I don't know, pick a Boston town. Natick voted to make marijuana legal, and it didn't mean diddly squat because it was still illegal at the state level. But all that support at the local level built a political wave that carried them through to decrim and to medical, and they're drafting it the same way here in Maine. Kudos to the MPP people for doing it locally in 2014 and then statewide in 2016.
The campaign war chest to pass medical marijuana in Florida will easily surpass $10 million. John Morgan, the high-profile personal injury attorney who has already bankrolled $3.75 million of the $5 million United for Care campaign to pass the constitutional amendment, says he has another, quote, at least $6 million committed as of today without more money from me, end quote. Sheldon Adelson, the billionaire casino tycoon whose wife works in drug rehab and whose son died of an overdose, has spent $2.5 million funding the opposition drug-free Florida committee.
Yeah, we're going to get 10, 15, maybe even $20 million spent in Florida before this is all over. Remember, the amendment in Florida needs 60% to pass because constitutional amendments in Florida require that level. But the most recent polls show 82% support, including 88% support, including 82% among Republicans. However, Adelson's money, that $2.5 million, is now generating some headlines as the Florida Sheriff's Association and other anti-drug groups stand up against Question 2. Don't think this is a done deal, folks. We got to keep fighting. And it's now 4:20 in the Mountain Time Zone, at least. So all our friends in legal Colorado have to enjoy their safety meeting as is required by union rules. Priscilla, thanks for the news. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Enjoy your 420.
Okay.
When we come back, we go behind the headlines on that new HuffPost poll on marijuana legalization in Colorado. Stick around. It's the Russ Belville Show.
420 Radio, the home of marijuana experts. The International Cannabis Business Conference takes place September 13th and 14th at the Portland Ballroom in the Oregon Convention Center in Portland, Oregon. Featured speakers include Oregon Senator Floyd Przansky, U.S. Congressman Earl Blumenauer, Daily Dish blogger Andrew Sullivan, author Doug Fine, and Harborside CEO Steve D'Angelo. To learn more, visit our website at internationalcb.
The pistachio. Green, natural, and available without prescription in all 50 states. He's fine.
Congressman Andy Harris thinks it's okay for medical marijuana patients to go to federal prison, even though Maryland passed a medical marijuana bill in April. On May 30th, Congressman Harris voted against an amendment to respect Maryland laws and protect Maryland patients. Why would Congressman Harris vote to send patients like this to prison? 72% of Maryland residents support medical marijuana. Is Congressman Harris out of touch with Maryland?
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio. Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net.
Welcome back, everybody. 23 after the hour, and time for us to go behind the headlines, where a new poll shows 61% of Americans support the legalization of marijuana in Colorado. Excuse me. The poll asked, quote, "Do you support or oppose Colorado's new law, which makes recreational marijuana use legal, but applies a heavy tax on marijuana sales, limits the sale of marijuana only to people 21 years old or older, and makes it illegal to take marijuana out of state," end quote. Majority support for Amendment 64 crossed all demographic categories, including support in the South and Midwest, topping 60%, while the Northeast and the West remained in the mid 50% range. Even Republicans support Colorado legalization at 52%, and senior citizens aged 65 and older support it at 64%. This support comes despite American majority belief that legalization will lead more youth to using marijuana. 53% of the people believe that. Democrats and people over age 40 were the only groups to not feature a majority who believe legalization leads to greater youth use, and even those figures were pluralities. That is, more people agreed than disagreed, but they weren't an over 50% majority. However, Americans seem to have learned more truths about legalization as well. Majorities across every demographic do not believe the gateway theory, that marijuana use will lead the user to the abuse of harder drugs. Only pluralities of Republicans and seniors still buy that nonsense. All demographics agree that marijuana legalization will not increase crime rates, except for Republicans who are split on the issue. No demographic group believes that the federal federal government should enforce federal marijuana prohibition in the states that choose to legalize. Strong majorities among all demographics except Hispanics believe that government efforts to enforce marijuana laws cost more than they are worth, end quote. Americans are split regarding marijuana and road safety. While 39% believe legalization will not affect road safety, 38% do, and 23% don't know. Women, people over age 45, Republicans, Hispanics, people who make more than $80,000 a year, and people in the West were more likely to agree that legalization will lead to more dangerous roads. Compared to men, people under age 45, Democrats and independents, blacks and whites, people making under 80,000, and people in the East who do not believe the roads will become more dangerous. Overall, 44% of the people polled had tried marijuana in their lifetime, but 7%, quote, preferred not to answer, end quote. Past use and no answer rates were highest among men, 49% plus 9%, and the middle-aged, 50% plus 7%. Majorities of women, 54%, seniors, 65%, Republicans, 58%, blacks, 53%, and Midwesterners, 53%, have never tried marijuana. And while marijuana is a great remedy for so many ailments, it doesn't do shit for hiccups, people. I apologize for that segment. I'll see what I can find. Maybe a paper bag. Somebody can scare me. Stand upside down. There's Larry. He's trying to scare me. Glass of water. We'll see what'll work here. Thanks, Larry. We'll be back with some drug war data mining and hopefully fewer hiccups when we return.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, fighting prohibition since 2012. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com. 420radio.org is proud to replay Professionals Against Prohibition with Jen Jackson from Raleigh, North Carolina. Meet today's most interesting activists in drug law reform and find out what creative means are being used to heighten public awareness of the need for drug law reform. Catch the replays Thursday at 10 Pacific on 420radio.org. The Marijuana Business Association, or MJBA, are proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show. It is the mission of the MJBA to establish integrity and legitimacy, create common market standards, provide market intelligence, and develop best ethical business practices for participants in the emerging legal marijuana industry, including commercial hemp, medical marijuana, and recreational marijuana for adults. Learn more about the Marijuana Business Association and visit mjba.net to join today. That's mjba.net. Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back, everybody. 30 after the hour, and hopefully the hiccups are gone. Oh my God, that's the worst thing when you're in talk radio. It's like being Bob Costas on TV with pink eye. You just can't, gloss over it. People are going to notice. But yeah, it happens from time to time. And God, it's been a couple of years since I've had that happen on the air. So I apologize. Thanks for sticking with me. I wanted to talk today in this drug war data mining about some great data mining done by the folks at Mother Jones Magazine. There's an article up right now on Mother Jones called "Will Your State Legalize Marijuana?" It was actually posted back in February, but it's been updated since the latest developments with medical in New York State. So it's been updated as of July, and I'll post the link in the chat room if people want to follow along. But you can see the map on our web screen that basically breaks this down into three possibilities for your state. Number one, will your state be pursuing reduced penalties? Number two, will your state be pursuing medical marijuana? And number three, will your state be pursuing recreational legalization? Now, in each map, the dark green states represent the states that have already done it. Right? So if you take a look at the top left corner, that map up there, all those dark green states are the decrim states. Those are the states that have reduced the penalties away from arrest and incarceration to fines and tickets for marijuana possession. So we see a bunch of the dark green states and a few light green states. Now, the light green represents where there are actions underway, attempts already, either through initiatives or through legislative bills to pass some sort of decriminalization. And then, of course, the states that are in that light gray shade are called the pipe dream states, where there's no chance in hell anytime soon they are going to do anything for reducing penalties. Now, as you look at the medicinal chart, same basic idea. Dark green states are the states that already have medical marijuana. I like looking at it that way because it looks like Idaho and Utah are surrounded. Unfortunately, Mother Jones made a mistake and did not shade in Nevada in that medicinal map. Nevada should be a dark green state. They have medical marijuana. And then you can see all these light green states surrounding the Great Lakes and running up in through the Rust Belt, and even Oklahoma and Nebraska and Louisiana pursuing some sort of medicinal marijuana. Finally, in the recreational section, of course, only Washington and Colorado are dark green states, but you can see up to 6, 7, maybe 9, 10 other states that are shaded light green as potential legalization states by 2016. So we'll run down the list of states here in alphabetical order so we can say where your state stands. In Alabama, you've got a chance for reduced penalties and medical marijuana. There's been a state bill introduced for decrim. In Alaska, they already have legalization and medical, but of course, on the ballot this November will be legalization in Alaska as well. In Arizona, there's a bill pending for decriminalization that would make possession of an ounce an infraction with a $100 fine. But right now in Arizona, it's the toughest state for marijuana possession. Any amount from a speck all the way to 2 pounds is a 2-year felony. 2-year felony. You're a felon in Arizona for any amount of marijuana. Now, Arizona does have medical marijuana, and legalization advocates are expecting a bill soon for legalization in Arizona. Arkansas, pipe dream on all 3 accounts. Possessing less than an ounce, or up to 4 ounces, could land you 1 year in prison and a $2,500 fine, $2,500. So Arkansas, complete pipe dream. California, of course, is already decrim and already medical. There is a very credible chance for 2016 for legalization in California. Colorado has made the hat trick: decrim, medical, and legal. In Connecticut, it's decrim and medical, but there does not appear to be any legalization in the near future. In DC, there's already decrim and medical, and of course, the possibility for passing legalization this November. In Delaware, there is no decriminalization. It's currently 6 months, $1,150 fine, but if you're near a school, a park, or a religious building, your possession is a felony worth 15 years and a $250,000 fine. Delaware does have newly passed medical marijuana, and legalization's not on the horizon. In Florida, anything over 21 grams is still a felony, 5 years, $5,000. There is medical marijuana on the ballot for November. No look at legalization at this time. Georgia is another one of the states that is a complete pipe dream state. no decrim, no medical, no recreational. Possession of an ounce or less is a misdemeanor. More than an ounce in Georgia is a 1 to 10 year felony. Hawaii has a decrim state bill, but right now, possession of an ounce can get you 30 days and a $1,000 fine. Hawaii is a medical state, and there is a proposed bill for legalization in Hawaii. Idaho is the third of our complete pipe dream states. Possessing up to 3 ounces is a misdemeanor. Possession of paraphernalia is a misdemeanor. Selling of paraphernalia in Idaho is a 9-year prison felony. In Illinois, possession is still illegal. Decrim's not taken root there. Possession can carry up to a year in prison. There is medical marijuana. It's extremely restricted in Illinois, and no future look at legalization. In Indiana, there is a bill pending for the reduction of up to 2 ounces to be a civil infraction. Right now, 30 grams could mean a year in prison. There is no medical or legalization on the horizon in Indiana. In Iowa, possessing any amount can get 6 months in jail. There is talk of a medical marijuana bill in Iowa. No look at legalization. Similar things could be said about Kansas, Kentucky, and Louisiana. All 3 states, possession is still a crime. In Kansas, 1 year in prison. In Kentucky, up to 45 days in prison. And Louisiana, up to 6 months in prison. Second offenses can get you up to 5 years and 20 years. There are medical marijuana talks in all those states. Kansas, Kentucky, and Louisiana have all either introduced bills or should be introducing bills in the near future. But Kansas, Kentucky, and Louisiana, nothing on the horizon for legalization. In Maine, marijuana is already decriminalized for possession of up to 2.5 ounces. There is already medical marijuana, and we are looking at the possibility of legalization being on the ballot statewide in 2016. Maryland has a bill to downgrade possession to decriminalization. It does have medical marijuana, and there's an introduction of a bill for legalization that did not pass, but it was introduced. In Massachusetts, they currently have decrim and medicinal marijuana and are referring bills for legalization. Michigan still has criminal marijuana possession, but decrim has been introduced there. They do have medical marijuana, and there are talks about getting Michigan on the ballot for legalization in 2016. Minnesota has current decriminalization and medical marijuana, though it's an extremely limited form of medical marijuana. Legalization does not appear to be on the horizon. Mississippi has decriminalization of marijuana up to 30 grams, but no talks for medical or legalization. Missouri has activists working on all 3 fronts. Currently, Missouri has no decrim, medical, or legalization, but activists have proposed bills for decrim and medical and are collecting signatures for legalization by initiative in November. In Montana, marijuana possession is still criminal. Any amount up to 60 grams can get you 6 months in jail, but they do have medical marijuana. No current talks about legalization. Nebraska has decriminalization of up to an ounce, but no current talks for medical or legalization. Nevada has decriminalization of up to an ounce and a medical marijuana program, and is slated to be one of the states looked at for possible legalization in 2016. New Hampshire has decriminalized marijuana and has medical marijuana. They also have had the introduction of a bill to legalize possession of up to an ounce. New Jersey has seen bills for the decriminalization of marijuana. It currently has medical, though it's quite a dysfunctional system. And there's talk of introducing a legalization bill. In New Mexico, possession of marijuana can still get you 15 days in jail. They do have medical marijuana, and there was a joint resolution of a constitutional amendment to legalize adult use. New York has decrim and newly passed medical marijuana. There's also a bill pending for marijuana legalization. North Carolina currently has marijuana decriminalization of up to 1/2 ounce, but no current talks for medical or legalization. North Dakota is the 4th of the states that are a complete pipe dream. Possession of less than 1/2 ounce can get you 30 days in jail. No talk of medical or legalization. Ohio has the greatest decrim amounts. Up to 300 or up to 100 grams is decriminalized. There have been bills introduced for medical and a chance for state legalization, but a faint one. Oklahoma, possession of any amount of marijuana can land you in prison for up to a year. A second offense is a felony. But there has been a bill introduced for medical marijuana, and there are activists working on an initiative for legalization. In Oregon, we are decrim at 1 ounce and currently have medical marijuana, and of course, we'll be placing legalization on the ballot in November. In Pennsylvania, possession of up to 30 grams can get you 30 days. There have been 2 bills introduced for medical marijuana that haven't gone anywhere, and a bill referred to committee for legalization. In Rhode Island, they have decriminalization and medical marijuana, and it is believed Rhode Island should be one of the next states to go for legalization in 2016. South Carolina and South Dakota are our 5th and 6th states that are considered complete pipe dreams. South Carolina, an ounce can get you 30 days. In South Dakota, less than 2 ounces can get you a year. Neither state has medicinal nor recreational. In Tennessee, it is still criminal to possess up to a half ounce. That can get you a year in prison. There has been a House bill for medical marijuana that hasn't gone anywhere, and recreational is not on the horizon. Texas and Utah are our 7th and 8th states that are considered pipe dream states. Up to 2 ounces in Texas can get you 180 days in prison. Up to 1 ounce in Utah can get you up to 6 months in jail, unless you get really lucky. Neither state is considering medical or recreational marijuana. In Vermont, marijuana is decriminalized and there is medical marijuana. There has been a Senate bill introduced for legalization. Virginia is the 9th of our states that get the hat trick for no marijuana reform in the future. Up to a half ounce can get you 30 days in Virginia. No medical or legalization looming. Washington, of course, the 2nd state to get the hat trick in marijuana reform by having decrim, medical marijuana, and legalization. West Virginia still treats possession of any amount as a misdemeanor that can get you 90 days to 6 months in jail. They have had a pending act for medical cannabis for a while, but hasn't gone anywhere, and legalization not in the future in West Virginia. Wisconsin still treats possession of any amount as a misdemeanor with up to 6 months in prison, but activists have been fighting for the Jackie Rickert Medical Cannabis Act there for years. Legalization does not appear to be on the horizon. And finally, in Wyoming, there was a bill introduced to make small-time possession of as an infraction $50 for up to a half ounce, $100 for up to an ounce. There are no plans for medical marijuana or legalization in the state of Wyoming. So that's the Mother Jones look at the potential for marijuana legalization from state to state. You can get that link through our chat room and find out how your state stacks up, just in case that all went by too fast for you. When we come back, we'll have time for a radical rant. What is it about marijuana legalization that blows cops' minds so much? Is it losing the easy cash cow? Or losing the thrill of busting long hairs? Well, it's something, because they've all gone reefer mad!
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, your ticket to the Boston Freedom Rally. At Royal Queen Seeds, we've got premium feminized cannabis seeds, including auto-flowering varieties for the medical cannabis user. We've got bulk shipments available and new CBD oil. Plus, we accept payment in Visa, MasterCard, and Bitcoin, as well as other methods. Check out our website at royalqueenseeds.com for more information. We are located in the Netherlands, and we have online grow experts ready to help you now at royalqueenseeds.com. In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
Well, there's this girl on my block. Every time I see her, she asks me to get high. And every time I tell her that I'm not into that. She says all the kids are doing it. If that's true, then why doesn't she find someone else to do it with?
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. New Approach Oregon is a coalition of Oregon citizens who believe that treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, costing taxpayers millions in law enforcement resources. Our approach will regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana for adults in Oregon. We can move Oregon forward and create new revenue for critical services. Visit our website at newapproachoregon.com or our page on Facebook at New Approach Oregon. Thank you.
You can't handle the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, no. Immorality generally.
How in the century you have slurred the meaning of the words we the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Welcome back, everybody. 47 after the hour. And, legalization, one of the fun things about it is watching the T-Rexes and the Apatosauri and the pterosaurs and the plesiosaurs slip deep into the tar pits of their own extinction, wailing on the way as they go down. Yeah, the easy cash cow of asset forfeitures and the easy investigations of, I smell something. Those days are long gone, and the cops have been wailing and wailing about it. So much so that I had to bring out the world's tiniest violin. I felt so bad for them. Aw, poor cops. Let me play a sad song for you. The first story I got today was from the Denver Post. John Ingold wrote this one. Legalization complicates police marijuana investigations in Colorado. So basically what they talk about is how this big warehouse had security cameras and carbon dioxide suppliers of security companies and everything. But then they didn't have one thing. They didn't have a license. And the cops are complaining about how, back in the old days, why, if we saw marijuana, we could bust them. But golly gee, now we have to do real police work. We have to investigate, whether they have licenses and whether they're properly registered. And we have to count the plants and make sure that they have too many or too few. And we can't take them if they're too few. And if we do take them, golly gee, they sue us sometimes for taking and killing and destroying their property. We want to go back to what it was like when it was all illegal, when we could just bust anyone who had pot anytime we smelled it, anytime we saw it. It was so much easier, my God. Now we have to actually file paperwork and have evidence. Yeah. All right. So you know how I feel about that. Ooh, tough. Now you have to actually work, guys. Gee, what a shame. So Mason Tvert, of course, slams this toward the end. Of course, it's all the way at the end of the article. The very last two paragraphs, John. Well done. Mason Tvert, one of legalization's most visible proponents in Colorado, said the basic police work behind marijuana cases today remains unchanged. Figure out what's going on and apply it to the law. Quote, they were counting marijuana plants and determining what the penalty should be before, Tvert said, and that's the same as it is today. It's really difficult to see why this is so confusing, end quote. Well, it's confusing because, as Upton Sinclair so famously wrote, it is difficult to convince a man of his misunderstanding when that misunderstanding is what gets him paid. I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the quote in front of me. But basically, These cops don't want to see. They don't want it. They just don't want it. They want their jobs to be easy. They want nice, easy, bright lines. They want to know that they can bust any doper they find with pot. That takes me to the other story that brought me down this little rant rabbit hole. And that's a local one out of the Oregonian, where in our state's largest newspaper, the Oregonian, 2 retired Multnomah County, Oregon prosecutors came out against the legalization proposed on the November ballot by New Approach Oregon. One guy, Norm Frink, is the former chief deputy district attorney, and Mark McDonnell is the former chief of the drug unit at the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office. And they both actually worked with Anthony Johnson and New Approach Oregon back when New Approach was trying to take this through the legislature. The original plan was, hey, let's put it in the legislature. Legislature can help craft what the legalization will be. And then they can refer it to the ballot, and then we don't have to spend a whole bunch of money and time gathering signatures. And the legislature balked at that. They didn't want to have any campaign ad coming out saying they helped to legalize marijuana. So, like we said, and like I warned, hey, legislature, you work with us and get the legalization that you like, or we put the legalization we like on the ballot. And that's the problem that Frink and McDonnell have. They call the new initiative, quote, deeply flawed, end quote. Now, McDonnell cites Washington's legalization as a better model because of its inclusion of a per se stone driving standard and its proscription against home growing. And he also prefers just 1 ounce of possession over New Approach Oregon's proposed 8 ounces. Frink goes further in wanting police to be able to draw blood of suspected stone drivers without a warrant. He also laments New Approach Oregon's lack of packaging and dosing standards for marijuana-infused edibles. Why do Frink and McDonnell think legalizing marijuana invents stoned drivers? They were DAs. You'd think they'd never successfully prosecuted anyone in Multnomah County for a marijuana DUID in the time that they served. Guys, marijuana exists now. 300,000 Oregonians use marijuana now. Cars exist now. Driving stoned in them is illegal now. How in the hell are cops catching stoned drivers now? Are we to assume that nobody's ever considered how to catch a stoned driver until 2014? 16 years after we passed medical marijuana and have 60,000 patients on the road? Jeez. Washington State's 5 nanogram per se DUID limit, it's a cruel joke. There's this report on KIRO News. I show it at just about every event I do that shows just how ineffective and arbitrary any sort of limit on marijuana is. In the video, they take a medical marijuana patient named Addie, and she shows up to the test at 16 nanograms. She's already 3 times the legal limit. And she drives almost perfectly. At 7 times the legal limit, she's still not raising any red flags for the driving instructor in her car or the drug recognition expert cop watching her by the side of the road. She gets all the way up to 11 times the legal limit, 56 nanograms per milliliter, before the drug cop even thinks she's borderline impaired. By the way, at 11 times the legal alcohol limit, 0.88 BAC, you'd be dead from alcohol poisoning. But it's not just the medical marijuana patients with high tolerance who would be unjustly convicted of impairment. The same tests showed that a weekend user with a mild tolerance and an annual user with no tolerance also performed just fine on the driving test, even with levels a few multiples higher than the 5 nanogram legal limit. The fact is that as much as cops and DAs would love to have a magic number on a sciencey machine to make jailing pot users easier, marijuana ain't alcohol. Alcohol is a hydrophilic or water-soluble molecule that produces psychomotor and judgmental impairment in a reliable, dose-dependent, weight-adjusted manner. If me, or if any 240-pound man drinks 5 drinks in an hour, I or that man would be above 0.08 BAC, and I or that man would be too impaired to safely drive a car. But marijuana is a lipophilic or fat-soluble molecule that is processed in an inconsistent manner by a body that easily develops tolerance to its psychomotor impairing effects. As was shown in the Cairo video, the frequent toker drives better at higher levels than the weekend toker, who drives better at higher levels than the occasional toker. I mean, that frequent toker could wake up in the morning sober and already be over a 5 nanogram limit, while a newbie at 3 nanograms might be a giggling mess. I'm sorry, there is just no magic number technology to tell you how impaired someone is by marijuana. So why shouldn't cops continue detecting the impairment of stoned drivers the way they've been doing for decades now, with roadside field sobriety tests and officer observations? Furthermore, Franken McDonald's opposition to home growing is also ludicrous. Every Oregonian is allowed to brew hundreds of gallons of their own beer, and it's far cheaper than retail prices if you add all those alcohol taxes. And yet somehow, Oregon has a thriving microbrew market that in no small part owes its success to the legality of home brewing. And again, people are illegally growing pot at home now. They will continue to even after marijuana is legalized, just as some of them continue to grow in Washington state. I mean, it's no more illegal to grow at home than it was before. But just like home brewing, home growing is kind of a pain in the ass. And it takes a certain talent to grow or brew something, worthwhile. We just have to look at the medical marijuana market here in Oregon to find that this is true. Any medical marijuana patient in Oregon is allowed to grow 24 plants and have 24 ounces. And yet, dispensaries cropped up as patient numbers rose. Why did those patients seek to spend more money per gram on marijuana than the cost of growing it themselves? Most recreational tokers will be glad to shop in a well-lit, adults-only store offering a huge variety of products rather than cleaning their grow room of spider mites again in the hopes of producing some half-decent marijuana 2 months from now. And especially when New Approach Oregon legalizes marijuana the right way, with a tax on weight, not price, and capping it at $35 an ounce. As Washington rolls out limited supplies of $20 a gram marijuana, it's kind of easy to see why people would want to avoid that tax and grow their own. But when Oregon rolls out marijuana at $85 to $100 an ounce, nobody but the most dedicated home growers are going to consider growing a measly 4 plants at home. Without home grow, all we'd be doing is continuing to felonize good Oregonians who are not committing any harm to others. Somebody growing 4 plants at home is not setting up to be the marijuana kingpin of Multnomah County. And you're concerned about 8 ounces of marijuana at home being too much? Well, that just shows how ignorant you are about marijuana cultivation. New Approach Oregon limits the home grows to 4 plants. Even a novice grower should be able to get 2 ounces out of a plant. Thus, that 8-ounce limit is pretty fair. It protects a home grower from accidentally exceeding the possession limit when she harvests the buds. And they purposefully omit the fact that you only get to possess 1 ounce of marijuana under New Approach of Oregon when you're outside the home. That 8-ounce possession is in the home. 1 ounce outside the home, because they realize if they pointed that out, then it's no more scary than the decrim of possession that we already have in the state of Oregon. To consider Washington the model when its first pot shops are closing for lack of inventory and its prices are double or triple the black market price just shows how out of touch these former jailers of pot users are on the legal marijuana issue. But at least they recognize, quote, it's a practical reality that marijuana legalization is inevitable, end quote.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
That's all the time we got for Hour 1, but stay tuned for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, where you're the voice of the marijuana nation. I'm Radical Russ Belville, live from Roller J Studios. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.